Hi, and welcome to the Modern Sense podcast. This is season 2, episode 4. My name is Andrea Thompson. I'm the host of the podcast and founder of Modern Sense. And today, it has been a long time coming. I am so thrilled to have Vikki Brown, the certified financial planner for Modern Sense, and my first planner, and will always be my first planner. Thank you for finally agreeing to do the podcast. I was just joking with Vikki off air before this that it's been like 3 years in the making, trying to pull her teeth to kind of get her to come on and talk to me. And she finally said yes. So thank you for acquiescing to all of my annoying commentary. So welcome to the podcast, Vikki.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. Sorry it has taken so long. I just don't usually like to talk about myself, but I will try today.
Well, I mean, we don't have to talk about you, but we are going to. We can also talk
Yeah.
about other things. I want to just start off by giving the audience a bit of a history on Vikki and I because it's fun. And I don't even know if you remember this, Vikki, but Vikki and I used to work together at Raymond James, which is an investment brokerage firm. Both of us were there in many different iterations and roles over a pretty decent amount of time in our careers. And I remember at one point I was sitting in my office and Vikki came in and asked to borrow my CFP books. She was doing her CFP exam, and I had all of my old Advocacy prep materials, which is the a body that was preparing me for taking that had prepared me for taking my exams, and she wanted to borrow them. So I specifically remember her coming into my office and me giving her the books so that she could start studying. And that must have been, what was that, Vikki? Like 2014, maybe
No, that would have been about 2016, but that was also the
2016.
first time that we actually had spoken to each other, I think.
Yeah, I know, which is crazy. She just came in and I was like, well, I know of her, but you came in and were brave to ask for my books. And I was like, of course, here are my books. And then next thing you know, Vikki has her CFP and she is now a certified financial planner for Raymond James. So talk to me a little bit about your experience as a CFP at Raymond James, where your career got started.
So I got started, well, first, before I got my CFP, I was working for a few different financial advisors as a sales assistant and was really interested in the client relationship side of things. But I had started out always with the intention of becoming a financial planner. This was sort of my way of getting my foot in the door. So yes, when I finally got my my CFP, which was very exciting, I was then able to move into the corporate side of Raymond James, where I was in a group of other CFPs. And what we did was we built financial plans for the clients of other financial advisors at Raymond James. I did meet with the odd client along with their financial advisor to do the planning, but it was more sitting at my desk behind a computer and just plugging away, doing all these plans for people that I really didn't actually know. So it was a fabulous way of starting my career for sure. I got lots of great experience. I had a great mentor. And I actually even had you, Andrea Thompson, sitting behind me in your office for a while. And then one day, Andrea Thompson yourself came out and and said to me, "Hey, Vikki, have you ever thought about joining a team again as a financial planner?" And I was like, "Oh, that sounds interesting." And yeah, that was turned out to be a very rewarding experience or opportunity because that way I was actually with clients. Like there was the one-on-one client contact, felt a lot more like I was making a difference with people and much more rewarding. And I am a very much of a people person. So yeah, I really enjoyed finally getting onto the client side. So I still was able to, like, I still love nerding out with the spreadsheets and the numbers and all that kind of stuff, but I also like being able to see how how I can impact a client rather than it being such a transactional role like it was in the corporate side of things.
Yeah, and you and I had similar career arcs. So
Yeah.
similar on the corporate side, and then moving on to a planning team. But before you even joined Raymond James, you had a totally different career. You were working with people directly, but a different space. So talk to people about what it is that you did before joining the financial services industry.
So prior to that, I used to be a travel consultant. At Flight Center, I had spent a few years trying to avoid going to university once I finished high school and ended up in Australia. Flight Center is an Australian travel agency. They're literally, well, pre-COVID, they were literally like on every single corner. And so I had been traveling for a few years, and travel felt to be my calling at the time. And yeah, I built a career as a travel consultant. And it was a very rewarding job as well, or career as well, working with clients, similar in some ways to financial planning, where you're helping a client realize a dream or a goal. They may have been saving for the last 3 years to take this big trip to India, or their honeymoon, they've always wanted to go to the Maldives, or whatever it might be. So there was a lot of similarities when I think about it with financial planning, right? You have this goal, and you have some parameters that you have to stick to help them achieve this goal, and working with them to help them realize that goal.
Wow. How did you make the decision to transition? What was the impetus for, hey, I really like what I do here, but I think there's more that I could be doing in a different industry?
Well, like I had said, I had been avoiding going to university for a long time. And then finally, while I was working as a travel agent, I actually started studying part-time at University of Tasmania. So I was working full-time, studying part-time, and I was doing a business degree. I knew that was sort of the road I always wanted to travel, not necessarily sure which avenue, but it was, I guess travel is, especially working at Flight Center, it was very taxing. We were commission based, so there was a lot of work. It was work hard. We played hard, a lot of great travel perks, but it was a lot of work. I worked way too many hours, so I was burning out. And
Mm.
so that was just a good way of trying to get out of it, was to start studying and finding a new path for myself.
Did you always know, though, that you wanted to be in the financial services industry, and it was just that we needed the education behind it, or how did you
No.
choose planning?
It's a good question. Well, when I first started business studies, what I really loved was economics. I started the stream of doing business economics as my major. I wasn't great at economics, but then when I moved back to Canada and I started working at RBC, just at the bank level, and pretty much straight away I was moved into an account manager role. So that's the person that when you go to the bank and you need to open a bank account or apply for a credit card, that's the person you meet in their little office. And so I was in my little office and realizing like that was a much too much of a sales job, which I was used to with Flight Center, but was not really what I wanted to be doing. But I had a financial planner that was in the office next to me. So I used to listen to him a lot and realize that was, hey, I think that's the path I want to take. So it just sort of ended up here, really. But I'm very
What was your
happy.
what was your degree in?
Well, I ended up doing a triple major. So it's economics, finance, and accounting. It
Are you
took
an
me
overachiever, Vicky?
Well,
Do you
it was
need three?
only, no, it was just that it only was like an extra semester or trimester that the university I went to was trimester. So it was one extra trimester to end up with all three majors. So I was like, why not? Right.
Wow. Well, good for you. And what brought you back to Canada? So you were living in Australia, you went to the University of Tasmania, but you ended up back in RBC in Canada. So what happened there? What was that transition about?
I was homesick, to be very honest. I'd been away from Canada for about 12 years at that point. And so I decided I wanted to get come to be closer to home. I'm originally from north of Toronto, Wasaga Beach, but my mom was living on Vancouver Island at the time. Vancouver's a pretty exciting city. So my husband, well, he wasn't my husband at the time, but my partner and I, Ruben, we ended up landing in Vancouver, went to visit my mom for a little while, but came back to Vancouver because that was a pretty exciting city. And so we just stayed there for the next 4 years. And then I decided I want to be back close to the rest of my family. So move back to Toronto to be closer to my dad and my sister and all the extended family.
But you made a big decision during COVID. You were living up in Collingwood, which is also lovely, as is Wasaga Beach, but you made the decision to move back to Australia, which is, a very big move. So talk to me about why, what precipitated that decision, and was that an easy decision for you to make? Because that's a big planning upheaval thing.
Sure is. What made the decision? Well, I suppose like we all were in our little bubble as we literally had during COVID. And, Ruben and I were both working from home like most Canadians were. And then even when life started to open up in Ontario, we were all still working from home and there was no real urgency put on us from Raymond James, who was working for at the time, to come back into the office. And same with Ruben's company. So we were kind of like, hey, we could do this actually anywhere. And borders hadn't necessarily opened up too much yet at that point, but we kind of thought like Ruben was pretty homesick for seeing his family. We'd been in Canada for 12 years by that point, actually. And so he was missing his family. And I still have great friends here. So we thought, why don't we just go to Australia for a little while and see what it's like? We've got nothing to lose. I contacted the FP Canada, so our governing body for CFP professionals, and they said, provided you pay your dues, of course, and keep my education up every year, I could live anywhere. So here I am. It did take a lot of planning, and particularly with our cat. We have a very cute, fluffy cat called Jello, and he is very cute. But that was probably the biggest part of the planning, to be honest. We had like 16 months or so of all the vet appointments, vaccines, etc., that you had to do for him to get him ready. And then just getting our financial situation in order, like, what we would tell somebody that was leaving Canada to move back to the US. That's probably one of the more common questions that we would get in our job. We liquidated our tax-free savings accounts because, as in the US, they're not recognized by the Australian Tax Authority as a tax sheltered account. So there's no point in keeping that. It's just getting all those sorts of bits and pieces ready, being like RSP, selling everything in there, having a new cost base, because in the future, if I still live here in Australia, it's taxed differently than if I'm a Canadian. So it's just lots of stuff to get prepared, just like, anyone that's moving north or south of the border in North America, right? There's a lot of things that you need to get your ducks in a row, really.
So you have unique experience a few times now in navigating this cross-border move, which has helped you, I'm sure, in the work that you do with clients who are also navigating similar cross-border moves. And you wrote a great blog post recently that I'll attach in the show notes around moving money across the border and some things that you need to consider around US Canadian currency and cash movements and whatnot. So Vikki is a little bit of an expert in this area, even though she'll never tell you that herself. The most modest planner you will ever meet is Vikki Brown right here. And I am so thankful that you joined Modern Sense. And we've been working together now since you moved back to Australia. And that was really precipitated by limitations in your former role where you couldn't maintain certain licenses once you were no longer a Canadian resident. And then due to that happening, you and I connected, and the rest is history, so they say. And I couldn't be more pleased. I would love to ask you, because I know that I have found this, and you've had a similar career experience, let's say in the last 10 years as me. What have you found is the difference in financial planning as a virtual advice-only planner compared to when you used to sit in an office building working for an investment brokerage firm with AUM-based clients? I would love to hear from you what differences that you feel you have experienced as a planner, or even have you grown as a planner, and how do they differ? How do those two job experiences differ for you? I would love to know.
I guess one of the biggest things is even the demographic, more of the demographic is quite different. Like I do still have some clients that work with a financial advisor, right? And they have their assets managed, but they're not getting the planning they need from that advisor. So they work with me. But most of my clients probably don't fit in that typical client that would work with an AUM manager, not necessarily because they don't have enough assets. It's more that they want to be involved in making the decisions around their investments, their money, or some people, as they say, are allergic to paying fees for the management of their assets. So I guess the biggest learning curve has been sort of like that, starting from the beginning, like the real basics, which I wasn't used to on the AUM model. Like, most of our clients in that AUM model tended to be fairly well off, maybe in their late 50s or older. So they're already in retirement or about to retire. And it's just kind of making their life a bit more efficient, I suppose, when it came to our planning and talk about estates and stuff like that. Whereas now it's like it can be getting really into basics around cash flow and like the best way of banking, or like that blog post, right? What's the best way to get my money up from the US to Canada? Not that that's necessarily a demographic one, but it's just some of the things that are really basic that you just sort of took for granted, I suppose, when we were on the AUM side. So it's been, I guess, a learning curve in the sense of like having to step back and really think about all of the intricate details that are part of a client's financial situation, like how to build your credit, and cash flow, and all those little bits and pieces that you just never really thought of. So that's been probably the biggest.
Yeah, I agree. I find that the cash flow piece has become so much larger. And maybe it is a little bit demographic based, but I think also the work that we do is perhaps, at least I find, much more involved in that,
Yeah.
before the clients were paying for investment management and then we did planning.
Yeah.
But now there's no investment management veil, let's just say that we have in a way to, I don't want to say hide behind, not that we were hiding before, but clients would tend to value that management aspect, I think, over the planning. And therefore, I don't think it made us have to be the best planner that we could have been.
True. Yeah, for
And
sure.
I find that being an advice only planner, I had to learn cash flow. I really did. And I think you and I both went through
Yeah.
that similar journey where we really have to start from the foundations with clients, which I don't think is the experience that I had ever had before on the
No,
AUM
same.
side. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. How do you enjoy the cross-border planning that you do? So Vicky is one of our cross-border planners at Modern Sense, pretty much exclusively working with cross-border clients now. So let's talk a little bit about your journey in the cross-border space, specifically how you got there, and then what it is that you enjoy working with cross-border clients on the most today.
I found my way as a cross-border financial planner working for the last team that I was at Raymond James, which was with you, Andrea. Yeah, we were on a cross-border, or a team that specialized in cross-border. So we were licensed. So I had my securities license in the US and in Canada, designation in retirement planning, or retirement income planning, retirement planning in the US, along with my Canadian CFP. So it was kind of thrust upon us, to be honest, just because of the clientele that we were working with. And I love it because it is quite the challenge. Like it's such a big challenge. Like there is no guidebook to being a cross-border planner, and I learn something new every day, and I feel like I'm researching something every day, or learning. And I find I learn a lot from my clients, right? Like,
Hmm.
for example, I just learned the other day a client that that has their assets, their non-registered assets with Schwab in the US. And they did that because they researched and found that Schwab is the easiest and cheapest to wire transfer money up to their Canadian bank. It's only like 15 US dollars. I was like, okay, that's good to know. Or, I learned like 3 weeks ago about Fidelity and how they can work with US persons living in Canada. So, and this is from clients. So
Hmm.
it's pretty awesome. So I feel like I've got my OneNote notebook, so I'm constantly making my own sort of guidebook, but things are constantly changing. So it's just like this ongoing upgrade or rewrite, to be honest.
Yeah, I know that I've had planners say, how can I learn cross-border? And it's just, I mean, I have no words to say how to learn cross-border. Like you said, a bit through osmosis in our prior experience, and I think both of us are really thankful for that experience. So shout out to the
Yeah.
Portage Wealth team if you're listening. We learned a lot, but also in just working with so many clients and gaining the experience. in so many different cross-border situations. Like you said, you're
Yeah.
never done learning because there's always a new one around the corner, even if you think you've
Yes.
seen them all, right?
Yes.
And that's certainly keeps you on your toes, but also keeps it interesting too. Because I don't know about you, but I get bored pretty easily. So now that you've had, 10 years as a CFP, do you find that you're ever drawing from your prior experience as a travel agent? Because they are somewhat related if you think about, the work that you did as a travel agent to help plan the finances around traveling and now working with clients who, as part of their ongoing priorities for their money, often have a large allowance or desire for extensive travel in their early retirement years. So does that ever come into your forefront when you're talking to clients?
I probably was more cognizant of it in my earlier days. Now it's not necessarily something I think about. But yeah, there's definitely that's similar parallel of like what you just said about the finance planning, but also even just an emotional side of things, right? So you wouldn't think it, but sometimes there could be a lot of vulnerability that my clients, when I was a travel agent, would show, right? Like I'm traveling to Gallipoli, which is in Turkey, where there was a big war during World War II. A lot of Australians died there. And so this could be this journey because I'm going there because my grandfather passed in this war. And that could be a very emotional conversation, or somebody that's booking a trip really fast to get to the dying mother, or whatever it might be. So there was a very emotional side, which I find is also in financial planning. You can have some pretty vulnerable conversations with questions. I think that the previous career and the skills that Flight Center gave me, we had a lot of training, let me tell you, had actually helped me prepare for those conversations, and how to build a rapport, but how to listen. And really in a lot of those situations, that's all you can do is listen. But how to listen and be empathetic with
Hmm,
clients.
that's fantastic. I would love to know, and maybe everyone else listening as well, some travel do's and don'ts. Like if you're booking travel, and this is important because it does construe a large portion of someone's budget, honestly. What
Yeah.
are some absolutely do not do this because you are going to waste your money, or you need to know about this? Like a few things, like maybe in the good and evil columns, so to speak, that you can advise people on. And maybe you've been out of the travel industry for a while now, so maybe everything's been modernized. I don't know. But is there anything that you can think of that you would advise people on, do's and don'ts of booking travel to be financially aware, let's just say?
Financially aware. Well, I don't know this. Let me think about the financially aware, but one of the do's, maybe on the other side, don'ts, is never book yourself a trip to somewhere without looking first if you need a visa, or well,
Mm,
before boarding the plane without knowing if you need a visa. Because yes, I've heard lots of stories of people that have flown to, for example, Brazil without having a Brazilian visa, and then they're just deported straight away. So always make sure you're checking to see if you need a visa, and sometimes it can take weeks to get that visa. So you have
mm,
to plan appropriately. When it comes to, well, to be honest now, well, my husband and I, we have been very savvy with credit card points. And so I would say if you're a person that really likes to travel, you should be looking for the credit card that has the best travel rewards. And because I know some people like to pay with cash, but the cost of everything when you're going to a shop has credit card fees built in. So
hmm
you may as well take advantage of those fees, or yeah, the fees, but also the perks you're going to get with a good travel credit card. So, I mean, we used to fly across Canada, or even we did a few trips to Australia via like around the world using points. Like if you can keep on top of those points, or not on top of those points, but some of the offers that a lot of the credit
hmm
card companies have to get bonus points, you can get a lot of really good perks that way.
Yeah, and one of our other planners, Jennifer Hughes, is a big couponer. We talked about this on
Mm.
our other podcast, and she definitely would know the right credit cards to get. I'm going to ask her after the call today. There's so many out there, and I think they change so often. Are you aware of any ones that, at least in Canada, that people should look at?
Well, I mean, it depends on your income level, and people that are responsible with paying a credit card off every month, which I'm happy to say I would say all my clients do. But American Express cards are definitely the best because those reward points you can actually convert into Aeroplan points, so Air Canada frequent flyer points.
Mm-hmm.
And excuse me. And if you have the income to qualify for this card, the American Express Platinum card is actually pretty amazing. Yes, it's expensive. It's about $800 for the annual fee. So we would just get it for 1 year, but you get, well, this is back when we did it. I guess the last time would be a few years ago, but we got like $500 of American Express travel credit. We got 2 free flights within a certain distance from your home city a year. You get lounge access around the world. The perks were amazing. So it was well worth the cost if you're able to pay off your bill every month.
Your credit card. Yeah. Very important being able to actually service the debt every month and not just put things on credit card and say, I'll figure it out later. Not a financial strategy. Okay, so just to wrap this up, if you took away all things financial, all things travel, what's one thing that people should know about Vikki Brown? Like one really interesting thing that we might not know about you. Anything that you can think of at all.
Well, you would never suspect this probably, but currently I am strength training 2 to 3 times a week with a goal of competing in powerlifting competitions next year.
No. Yeah. Oh my God, that's incredible. Wow. Are you going to be on the CrossFit Games? Can I see you on that eventually?
It's definitely not CrossFit. It's not CrossFit.
No.
This is powerlifting is like, deadlifts, squats, and bench press. Yeah.
Wow, congrats. That's awesome. What a great goal and now you've just revealed your age to the world, which you don't care because you're fabulous and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I thank you. And I thank you for doing this. And I know it's sometimes hard to put ourselves out there into the world, but you deserve to be put out into the world. Is there anything else that you would like people to know about you, Jello, Ruben, Tasmania, anything at all? Where can people find Vikki other than on the Modern Sense website? Are you anywhere on social media that you think people should go visit you on?
LinkedIn. I am on Instagram, but I'm definitely not a very disciplined poster or creator of posts.
Vikki is wonderful. Her articles are on the Modern Sense website where she's been featured in the media. She's about to be on Bruce Sellery's podcast this week, Mulala, so you can check her out there very soon. And once again, I just want to thank you for doing this. I hope it was fun for you. I know it's hard to talk about yourself, but I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity and making it not too difficult.
All right, take care, Vic.
Thanks. Bye.